Hi, guys. So glad to be with you guys today. And I hope you're as excited as I am about having best-selling author Jen Sugermeyer with us to talk about her book, the process of writing it, why it was so important, and give you all the juicy behind the scenes stuff on what went on to create a best-selling book. So thanks for being with us, Jen.
Yes, thanks for having me. Love being on the
Yeah.
show.
Oh, yeah. It's been such an amazing process, right? We've been together for, gosh, since October, September
I
last
think it
year.
was September last year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing. And I know you already had your book idea and all of that stuff. So tell people a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and why the book was so important to you.
Okay. So thanks for the introduction, Jen Sugermeyer. I've been in Texas for 7 years now, but I have lived all over. And and I think, and I mentioned that because I think it's important. My journey started a long time ago. And when I kind of peel the layers back, I look back to my life, and it all started when I was 12, and I had an eating disorder, and I was living this double life. And my life just had a series of twists and turns, and I was living here, and I had this job, and I was married, and I was divorced, and I had everything just like all of us have in our lives, where they just kind of pile on. And all of a sudden, I picked my head up, and I was in my mid 30s, and I was an alcoholic, and I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me in the mirror. And I look back to when I was 12, and I had my eating disorder and my double life, and I realized that I just had one kind of addiction that led to another, and life just continued to pile on me, and I ignored the person inside. And so today's actually a really special day for me. It's my 2-year sobriety date, and I actually
Yay.
started writing Reset a year ago today. So the book is incredibly important to me. The book it's called Reset, and it's about hitting the reset button on your life. And it's not intended for people. Addiction is my story, but we all, I think so many of us have had life that has just piled on us, and we've got to kind of break things back and get back to that fundamental. Who was that 5-year-old that had that confidence and that self-love? And so it's important to me because this has been my life, and I look at and I use these tools every single day. So when I approached Vicki, I had most of the book written. I started writing May 13th of 2019. I wanted to reach my 1-year sobriety date, and that's when I started writing. And I came to Vicki and I said, Vicki, I don't know if you remember this. I said, the book is good, but it's not great. It's missing its secret sauce. And that's when we started working together, and it has
Mhm.
completely changed and transformed. And so many things about the way I look at the book and my business have changed since then.
So tell us a little bit about the business. How has that changed since the book? Like what you're talking about right there.
Yeah, I don't know that I had a whole lot of clarity behind what my vision was. And
Mm.
I've always known, I want to help people in some capacity. I didn't know it would be in this capacity, using my life story kind of as you know, my soapbox, I guess. But so first, the book, I now have a book with a structure that I didn't have when I came to you. And you asked me one day, you said, and this was one of the pivotal moments of when we worked together. You said, is there an acronym that you can use and to organize your book? And I said,
Mhm.
well, the acronym is going to be Reset. And then I figured out what Reset would stand for, and we rejiggered the entire book,
Yeah.
and now Reset is now trademarked, and that is the platform that I use. So Jen Sugermeyer is a life coach. What do I use? My trademarked Reset program.
Yeah.
So that all came about because of those conversations that I had with you, and it was a lot more clarity in terms of what does it look like to get speaking engagements? What does it look like to have coaching?
Mhm.
This is all new territory for me. So I may have had some ideas, but nothing concrete. So a lot has
Yeah.
changed since we started working together.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the clarity with that, I think really helps people in business because now it's like all of a sudden you know what you're talking about, you know what
Yeah,
you're going to be known for. Like when I think of Jen, I think Reset. I mean, it's behind everything that you have.
yeah,
So, one of the things that people have problems with sometimes is really sharing their story. And I feel like with you, we didn't really have as many conversations because you were so willing to be transparent about the
Mhm,
things that you went through because you knew those were going to help people. So,
mhm,
for people who are listening that might have that story that they're thinking, oh gosh, do I really want to tell all that stuff?
mhm.
What kind of advice can you give to them about that?
That's the only way people are going to connect with you. If you're, and you know, and I appreciate you saying that. I think we, you called me out a lot in the book because I was talking to, not showing.
Hmm.
So I was very open about my story, but I think there was a lot more that I could show through other stories as well. Um, but that's where you connect with people. And the way I think I even talk in my just with my friends has become more storytelling, and because people connect with that, they don't
Yeah.
want to be sitting in a lecture hall. And for me, it was very vulnerable. I mean, I lived these two lives for a long time. I worked in corporate America, and
Mhm.
this was not anything that I wanted to share. I didn't want to share it with my parents. I didn't want to share it with my friends. This was a life that I didn't even identify with or appreciate myself. I mean, I wanted it gone and I just couldn't. So to come out and say, I struggled with this, these are the things that happened, it's a huge shock, but that's the way that people are going to connect with you. And if you're
Mhm.
standing up and saying a lecture, I think back to college and how much I retained, like, eh,
Yeah,
but
right.
when I hear a story, I'm like, that might not be, and again, my story is my story, but you'll find some way to connect with the journey. And so,
Mhm.
you know, it's a vulnerable thing, but you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable in order to get your point across, to pull people in. And you know what, at the end of the day, it's not, it helps you heal as well. So,
Mhm.
if that's the fear, every time I say it, I take the power away of what happened in my life, and I become stronger by sharing
Mhm.
it. So it's really a two-way street to tell it, come out and tell your story.
Oh yeah, I love that you get stronger. So did you have to tell, or did you feel like you should tell some of the people that you knew were going to read your book? Like did you need to tell them stuff before they got there?
I didn't tell anybody anything. I didn't. I mean, so there are some cameo appearances that I would just use, not necessarily maybe in relationship to my drinking or anything like that, but just as stories and lessons learned throughout my life. And I have had a couple people say, "Was that?" Because I tried not to be real, obvious. I didn't use names and things like
Yeah.
that, but there were some people that knew. And I did it crossed my mind on how that would come across. But I think that the big things, the yes, I've been in jails, and yes, I've been in hospitals, and yes, I'm an alcoholic, and yes, all of these things, those I came out with ahead of time, so it wasn't like the big reveal of
So your
everything.
mom wasn't like, "Wait, I didn't know any of that
Whoa.
happened."
Why didn't you tell me? Why did I read it in a book? So there were
Right.
some things that I came out with ahead
Mhm.
of time, but I kept most of that one kind of to myself, and it was really healing. And now as I grow in my next books, I feel like I needed to purge that, to get it out, and now
Mhm.
I've got my focus for going forward. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I know you're writing a new book already.
yeah.
So can you give a little sneak peek about that?
Yes, yes. So in Reset, I have there are 5 steps that are in there, and one of the steps really touched me as I was going through it. And these are all things that I lived, and I thought I don't want to say mastered. I think that's a big word to say mastered, but that I had gone through myself and really conceptually grasped. But I remember when I was writing a book, the chapter on standards and boundaries, I was sitting and I felt like I was in a video game, and I hit that next level, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing what boundaries and standards can do in your life. And I've only scratched the surface. And so I actually just finished writing an entire book on defining your boundaries, and it's the yes no playbook to getting the life you want.
Mhm.
So that is now finished. I did the Audible as well. I actually this morning just sent it off to the editor, so it's
Yay.
coming in a matter of 30 days. So I'm really, really excited for this. And so now I'm
Yeah.
going to start digging into a lot of the concepts that were in reset because I touched a lot of things at a high level, and now I'll
Mhm.
start digging in, and that'll be the progression of the following books.
Oh, so cool, so cool.
Mhm.
So, if you had like maybe 3 tips to tell people about finishing their book, because some people just think about it, some people
Uh-huh.
write a little bit and never finish, and that, there's so many different scenarios. But if you could tell somebody 3 things about why you were able to get done and why other people maybe haven't, could you give some insight on that?
Yeah, I didn't want, I don't have ADD, or at least I've never been diagnosed with it, but I'm pretty sure that I would be off to the next thing. I mean, I don't, I wanted to really, when I put this as a priority, I made the time to do it. And I
Mhm.
think it's like when you go to the gym and you want to get in shape, you can't just do it once and then come back in another couple weeks. I think, it's good. Sometimes you need to step away, right? You need your body to do that. But I think, I really sat down. I actually took 2 trips out to San Diego because I felt very inspired there. Not that you don't have to take a trip, but I did because I just really wanted to get into that space. um, I think we have to follow our gut. And if our gut is telling us that we have this book, we have this idea, that you really have to go with it when you're feeling that. And sometimes that fire can kind of burn off. And so doing that in the moment, if you're too far into it and you're spinning, then you need to step away. But if you're flowing, then I would find that time whenever that works best for you. Um, because I have found, I've written books in the past and I didn't come back to them, and they'll probably never be published. And so do it while you have the energy and that focus.
Mhm.
Um, I think, I do think that there's an energy that's around it. You get really excited about what you're working, and you get really passionate, and if you're kind of going in and out of that passion, then that energy isn't necessarily there. And that's what's going to
Mhm.
drive you forward. That's going to help you in your marketing, your mindset, everything. And so that energy is really crucial, I think, to get it while it's optimized. And if you're tinkering in and out and doing other things, then you're not
Right.
giving it the I think the focus that it needs.
Mhm.
So
Did
um,
did you feel like there were any times where there were stumbling blocks or things that you were afraid might happen, or stuff that just came up? What were those?
um, I had most of my book outlined, and so I don't know. I think my first pass, I didn't necessarily have the stumbling blocks, but I realized, and I think some of this is understanding your own voice and your technique as a writer and things like that. So I think I got a lot of things down on paper, and then where I struggled was to then refine it and make sure that it was me. And
Hmm.
Vicki, I don't know how many times you told me this. You said, "Okay, Jen, I hear you, I see you as a person, and when I read your book, I hear a different tone." Do you remember telling me
Yeah.
that?
Hmm.
And so I think some of that, as especially as a first time writer, my second book, I felt a lot more confident, and that was it. So I think that for me, that was some of I tripped over that a little bit. It's how do I
Hmm.
make the Jen Sugarmeyer that people see and speak to, how do they hear that, and
Yeah.
merging those, and then just understanding storytelling and things like that. So that was
Yeah.
probably the hardest part.
Yeah. And what do you see now? Okay, wait, no, let me back that up. How was it on bestseller day?
Oh my gosh. Well, after we got past a few technical difficulties,
Yeah.
you know, it's it's like, it's like watching the birth of your child, I guess. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
this is something that you have poured everything into, emotionally. You everything is into this book, and I mean, for me, it was such a vulnerable thing. And then to see it, start to, even in other countries, and when it was being purchased, I'm like, this
Yeah.
is amazing, and just to have that love and support. And the reality is, I think, especially as first time authors, you probably know a good majority, I would say, of some of the people that are buying it, but there's other people that you don't know.
Hmm.
And it's an overwhelming sense. I kind of felt a little bit like when I was at my wedding and people were there to like celebrate me. a little bit, and here I was releasing this book, and it was like a celebration of me. So it was,
Mhm.
yeah, one of the
Yeah.
greatest feelings.
And what do you see now for the future for Jen Sugarmeyer? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I have a coaching company. We're going to start working on the business, and so I've got everything for the most part mapped out on how this is going to look and into a phased approach. But it's really centered around um, you know speaking engagements, life coaching, and continuing to write books.
Mhm.
I've got my next book that I've already got mapped out. So I see writing as being a big piece of what I
Mhm.
do and what I have to offer in my portfolio. I did create an online course, and so hopefully I'll get that out here in the next 3 months or so. But yeah, I see things taking off here in the next few months, more so than in addition to where I'm at now.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I want to take this as far as conferences, and I've got
Mhm.
trademarks, a couple of trademarks that are in the works, all the way going to up to conferences and things like that. So I see big
Yeah.
things, and it's kind of just starting and scaling up. So
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen you be on a lot of like podcast interviews
yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah.
Nothing's holding you back, even though we're at home and you've been on TV and had
Mhm.
those interviews. Those have been so amazing. So congratulations on
Thank
those.
you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So any last words of wisdom for people who are like, oh, I don't know if I should do this. Is this the right time? Can I
do
do
it.
it?
Do it. And I mean, in terms of time, if you have the idea, you should always do it. But especially now, I mean, with COVID happening, and I woke up on April 1st, and I had this idea that Vicky, and actually Vicky, remember you asked me, you said, Jen, should we shift gears and go towards this other book, because I was so passionate about the topic.
Yeah, I remember.
And I said, no, I really wanted to get reset. But it was, I mean, I really thought about that, because I wanted to write about this book. And I woke up on April 1st, and 2:30 in the morning, I grabbed my laptop and I said, all right, Jen, you have 30 days, you're doing this. And I just poured myself into it. And give yourself timelines and goals and be realistic. 30 days is not realistic, probably for most people. Maybe it is, but my life, it worked for my circumstances. But now is such a good time. We've been blessed, and we've been gifted this time where things aren't really opening up yet. Use it
Yeah.
to find a project, self-reflect, write your book. Do it now. Don't wait. You're going to lose the energy behind it, and
Yeah.
don't second guess yourself too much. I think we get into our heads way too much.
Right, right. And it's so true. We've been gifted this time.
Hmm.
And some people might feel like they're more busy if they've got kids and they got to do a whole bunch of other stuff at home as
Yeah.
well. But even though this has happened, your purpose hasn't changed. Your story hasn't changed. Your voice hasn't changed. Like what you really want to say and where you can help people hasn't changed.
Hmm.
Even though it feels like sometimes like we don't know what's going to happen next. So I think that's really good encouragement, for people that this could be the perfect opportunity for you to get that thing. Because if you have a book on your heart, it's not going to go away. I mean, Jen, your second book was tugging on you before the first one was done. It looks like we might have lost Jen, but we are wrapping things up anyway. Like I was saying, if you have a book that is tugging on your heart, that calling is not going to go away until you get that book done. So this could be your perfect chance, perfect moment to get that impact, leave that legacy, and really get your story out so that you can impact more people. So thank you to Jen, who sadly has popped off. But thank you to Jen for sharing all her wisdom and her success and the process of getting that first best-selling book done. Congratulations, Jen.